initiate chaos theory guarantees that we'll play like lightning shots, sounding like thunder. For every time in the face that it hits us, we're faster. Well, they should know by now. They see the world keeps trying to shake us. It only wakes us. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swings. It's in a beautiful darkness. Napoleon another. It's full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. All about the Petty Express. Misdirected from the start. It's a runaway train. I come a freight train. I come a freight train. In a beautiful darkness, the Petty Express. In a beautiful
Welcome back to the Petty Express, everyone. We have Shanda Vander Ark. Good morning, Nanny Goat and Wolfram and everyone else. We have so here is after the 15-minute break, and the state has basically rested its case. So now the defense is going to probably stand up and make a presentation that, in their opinion, the state has not met its burden. Now, this is something that's mostly done for appellate reasons, but the state is required at the end of their case to have, in the light most favorable, I believe, to the state, have proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So a jury could possibly see that there is enough evidence to have it go to a jury. So that's what I anticipate happening, is we are going to get that speech made by Shanda's lawyer, and then they're maybe going to discuss that. And then I believe Shanda is the only witness for the defense. It does take, I will say her direct seems to take a long time, but that's because her lawyer just speaks incredibly slowly.
We're back on the record in 23110 FC, People versus Shanda Vander Ark. Jury has secured the jury room. Mr. Johnson, I believe you have a motion for the court.
Yes, sir. At this point, we would move for a directed verdict of not guilty, Your Honor, on two bases. The first basis is, and my notes indicate, and talk to my staff here, that the proper jurisdiction has not been set in this matter, while the court has received information as to the...
Wait, we have subject matter jurisdiction problems? Now, again, this is a Hail Mary, as we know. This is a blast from the past, sort of rewatch of a trial that's already happened. So this argument doesn't hold water, but I do believe that, jurisdiction would have been taken care of at the very earliest inceptions of this trial. But the defense lawyer has to do his job. He does have to zealously defend her constitutional rights, even if her, inclusion in the human race is up for, well, discussion.
The address of this home, we don't think has ever been established that this particular home is in Muskegon County or within the jurisdiction of this court. We recognize that folks from North Shore responded, but there was...
Spinster, good morning. This case hit me hard. Does anyone else think Paul is a victim of Shanda too? Yes. His verdict troubles me, as I think he was terrified of Shanda and did what he was told. Yes and no. I agree with you. I believe, so here's what I believe. You can take it with a grain of salt or what have you. But as far as Paul, I do think that Paul, was afraid of his mother as a child, and there were significant and apparent substantiated claims that got Shanda to have to relinquish her parental rights of all of the siblings. I do believe that the child that Paul was deathly afraid of his mother. And part of him reverted when he moved back in with Shanda to that scared little boy who didn't realize, or somewhere in his, subconscious reverted back to that, wanted to get acceptance and love and, any sort of positivity from Shanda. And it is normal for, I think, people who have had maybe difficult relationships with their parents to somewhat revert back into patterns that worked for them in the past. So if as a child, it was safer for him to, pick on the other kids or make sure they got in trouble rather than him, Yes, I do think he's a victim, but I think that again, there you have a lot of people who deal with not great things happening in their childhood, but they don't go on to victimize other people. I feel like he was a victim, but the moment that his pain crossed the line into him victimizing someone else, I don't think he gets to utilize that that trauma of his to excuse it, because as far as I know, his older brother and his sister that spoke out at the victim impact statements had arguably the same or as hard a childhood as Paul did, and have managed to go on to college, to have a career, to have a wife. So I think that everyone has their own particular traumas to have to deal with, and they can be, they can survive those. But it's when you use that trauma to justify your victimization of someone else that I I can see it argued both ways, but I fall more on the if you have been a victim of this kind of behavior, you know how bad it sucks. And you work your damnedest not to spread that kind of suck to someone else. And you have a choice. And the moment he chose to, let his anger cross the line, follow Shanda when he knew that it was probably a bad idea, that's when, um, you know, he's a hard one. I think he's dangerous. I think that he lacks the either emotional intelligence or even the intelligence or the ability to kind of common sense intelligence to know when he's being manipulated, to, know when his anger is being used as a weapon. And he says he has an anger problem. And again, if he's not able to discern who is good to listen to and who is bad, if he doesn't have that internal compass, we can't trust that, 20 years from now, he's not going to come under the influence of someone else. So I think there's redemption possible, but for the safety of others, he would have to be very thoroughly checked if he ever got out. He relied on her because he wasn't capable of taking care of himself. And that's true. He was in a sort of his, and I might be wrong on this, I'm not a doctorologist, but I would place his kind of behaviors, his kind of emotional maturity at about the level of my 13-year-old son. So kind of aware that there are perspectives that are different than his, kind of it, like not being able to read social situations in an adult manner. It's a very infantilized sort of view in the world and, uh, you know, relationship with the world around him. Oh, and Tammy, be careful. So I guess Paul is one that I go back and forth on, honestly. I do think that he reverted into a sort of trauma past kind of reaction, I would call it, where you kind of forget that you're an adult and, this person, while maybe still being your mom, you're older than her, you're bigger. They're not the monster in, your closet anymore. But I will say that none of that excuses what he did. And he had every reason, knowing exactly how, Shanda's brand of cruelty can really hurt a person. He had every reason to know exactly how that feels. And yet he didn't stop it for his brother. So that's where I somewhat lose sympathy on for him. If that answers your question, which is kind of wishy-washy because I can argue all the points.
Still, I don't think any testimony from any witness saying this was within the court's jurisdiction, according to our notes, so we move that it be dismissed on that basis. Secondly, we're moving that it be dismissed on the basis that a reasonable person could not find guilt in this matter, that the testimony is virtually unanimous, that my client does not perform any of the conduct which would lead a reasonable person to believe that she's the one responsible for this. All these actions, even taken to the prosecutors, best light of the prosecutors, were performed by Paul Ferguson and not my client.
And this is where I think this was her plan all along. So if I do feel a certain sympathy for Paul, it's that Shanda marked him as the patsy. I think she was very, very careful to make sure that Paul was the strong arm, that if there was any sort of hands-on physicality that needed to go on, Paul was the one that did it. And I'm sure that her eventual plan was to only keep the text messages in which Paul is showing violent reactions toward Timothy and, turned on Paul. The problem is that Paul is in no way able to, no one is going to pick Paul as the mastermind. And Paul might have been violent. Paul might have had explosive bouts of violence with Timothy had Shanda not stepped in for anything. But Paul would not have been this meticulous, this methodical, this calculatedly cruel to Timothy. This is a Shanda thing. Paul doesn't have the capacity for some of these sort of diabolical tortures that they put him through.
My client, quite frankly, and the testimony indicates that she held Paul back from doing some other things that he wanted to do, and therefore she is not the one responsible for this homicide. Furthermore, there's indication that there's food in the home. There's indication that she kept food in the home, that she's responsible for that. There's further indication.
Yes, you might have kept food in the home, but again, Timothy knew he was going to be aggressively punished if he got it. And you made sure he knew. Again, there's a point at which Timothy no longer snuck food because he was so terrified of what was going to happen, and he didn't have the energy anymore. So this is such, I see why he is arguing these things, and I see why he is taking the tactics that he is, but they are so lackluster for such a monstrous thing, that a monstrous campaign of torture that she did to her child. These sort of explanations are like when my youngest tries to tell me that a robber broke in and wrote his name in Sharpie, because, robbers are known for, break-in Sharpieings all over the place.
By the fact that those individuals under her care, which would be Paul and the younger son, G, were of healthy mind and body. Given all those factors, we don't believe there's enough for a reasonable person to find guilt in this matter. We'd ask that there be a directed verdict to that effect. Thank you.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. First, as it relates to the jurisdictional issue, Your Honor, I asked at least 3 different witnesses if the 4788 Marshall was in the city of Norton Shores County, Muskegon, State of Michigan, to my recollection. Officer Stefanich, I believe Officer Piesky, and certainly Lieutenant Hooksum all testified to the effect that location was in the city of Norton Shores County, Muskegon, State of Michigan. So I think that argument is without merit. As it relates to the other portion of the argument here, I understand this is a motion that Mr. Johnson does need to make, but I think there is ample evidence here from which a reasonable juror could conclude that Ms. Vander Ark had at least one of the states of mind requisite for a murder charge here, whether or not she had the intention to kill. On a personal level, I hope she didn't have the intention to kill. If you were going to kill somebody, I would hope you would do it a lot faster and a lot less torturous than the way that this was done. But she certainly did have.
And that's the kind of petty I like, because he is, again, and this is this kind of stuff that Shanda is really going to get pissed off about, because it's that snark that is telling the truth, but telling it in a way that insults Shanda's intelligence, which is her main sort of ego savior. She's smart, but she got caught real quick for a smart person. She's book smart, not street smart.
A requisite state of mind to form the intent necessary to do either great bodily harm or to create a situation where great bodily harm was the natural result of her actions here. As to whether or not she actually physically did any of the things that were alleged to have happened here, Paul's testimony alone, as well as the text messages, established that she was not just the person who directed these things to be done, and you don't get to use as a defense, well, I just said to do these things and somebody else did them. That alone is a basis to find that she is complicit in this charge, but also that she actively participated in a number of these things. Paul repeatedly testified that if he didn't administer the punishments, that she would administer those punishments, that it was essentially an effort between both of them at the times when she was at work and he would not be at work. If she was at work, he was at home, he was responsible. If he was at work and she was at home, then she was responsible for doing these things. There's also been testimony from Paul that Timothy was in the ice bath after the ice bath right before he died, and that Shanda is the one that was actually administering the ice bath at that point. And the text message about dragging him back into the small room sent to Paul, that was one of the last text messages that we have on July 5th, the day before, the morning, essentially the night before Timothy passes away and is discovered the next morning. So again, I understand that the motion needs to be made to preserve certain appellate issues here, but I would indicate to the court that there is ample evidence for this court to conclude that Ms. Vander Ark had one of the requisite states of mind to commit a murder in this charge, as well as evidence that she did engage in the infliction of emotional or mental or physical harm, serious physical or serious emotional harm on a child, which is the basis of the child abuse first degree.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Roberts has indicated that his recollection is that at least 3 witnesses established jurisdiction for the court in terms of where this happened. Your response to that?
Your Honor, as the court is aware, a lot of things are going on while we're doing these matters. But I canvassed my staff here, and we don't recollect that phrase was used. We recollect that the address was used. However, we don't recollect that it was noted there was in Nova Shores or that it was in the county of Muskegon. That's the phrase I think that offers the court this jurisdiction in this matter, and it doesn't reflect that in our notes. So, and quite frankly, it's one of the things we check off as we do a trial like this. So, from our recollection, we don't see it, and we leave the court to its recollections.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, as to the jurisdiction of the court, I don't know if it was used in the exact terminology that Mr. Roberts indicated, but my recollection independently is that jurisdiction had been established through one or more of the witnesses. Now, Mr. Johnson, if you prefer the court to review the record, I'm happy to do that. My independent recollection is that jurisdiction was established through one or more of the witnesses, but I'll leave it to you what you like the court to do.
Judge, we're satisfied with the court's recollections.
Okay, thank you. So the court is going to deny the directed verdict on that basis, the motion for directed verdict. As both parties know, pursuant to case law, a directed verdict of acquittal is appropriate only if considering all of the evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution. No rational trier of fact could find that the essential elements of the crime charge were proven beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a cite taken right from People versus Mehall, which is 450.
Now, I will say in my almost 2.5 years of watching trials, I have only seen one case with a directed verdict actually happen, and that was a case out of Arizona. I am blanking on the name right now, but it involved basically a father who was alleged to have caused either, I believe it was his stepdaughter or his daughter's disappearance in the 90s, mid-90s. And there had been a whole podcast that had kind of grown up after, this being a sort of cold case for a long time. And there were by no means balls dropped on by the police department in the investigation. And unfortunately, at the end of the state's case, the state wasn't able to prove beyond anything that he had anything to do with either her disappearance or anything. There are a lot of suspicious facts, but the state did not have a case to go forward. So that's the only case I remember that this has ever happened. It is for appellate purposes mostly to, mark that and put on the record that they did see these particular failings in the state's case. And that might be something an appellate court or an appellate attorney looks at to make sure that was the jurisdiction actually clearly defined, that kind of thing. It's a whole lot of a stretch to believe that Shanda thinks that with a straight face, she can argue that Paul Dunn did it and I had nothing to do with it.
54-1, 1997 case. That case, as well as those cases before it, indicate that the court is not permitted to make any sort of credibility determination in deciding a motion for a directed verdict. So although Mr. Johnson did somewhat attack Mr. Ferguson's credibility, the court cannot make a judgment call in regards to credibility. Based on the evidence that the court's heard so far, the courts cannot find that no rational trier of fact. That's really what it comes down to, is essentially, can any person, any rational trier of fact, and there has been enough evidence, at least presented by the prosecution, taking that evidence in light most favorable to the prosecution, that a rational trier of fact could find, in this case, the essential elements of the crimes charged, specifically open murder, which could be first-degree felony murder, as well as second-degree murder, as well as child abuse in the first degree, were proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So based on that finding, the court is going to deny the motion for directed verdict. Anything else on that, Mr. Roberts?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No, sir.
All right, now, Mr. Johnson, my understanding is your client intends to testify, is that correct?
That is our intention, Your Honor, yes.
All right, and I'm assuming, and I know you very well, and you've spoken to her about this decision, is that correct?
Yes,
We
sir.
are going to
And how many
skip the sort of soliloquy that the judge has to go through. Every defendant who decides to testify has to go through this kind of answer question sort of thing for the record. Between the judge and the defendant, you know that you don't have to testify. You know you have the right to remain silent. You know that you are going to be cross-examined, all of that kind of stuff. But in order to have a faster run through, because Mr. Johnson is slower than molasses sometimes. And this one doesn't pop out the...
Mr. Johnson, that, well, wait a minute, if this would have gotten in, or under any circumstance, or their possession, and as a result, those are not turned over until, I believe, last Friday, correct?
Yes. Well, called me on Thursday and I saw them on Friday.
So the pre-death video was one of those videos. There was a discussion about potentially adjourning this trial. And the people's position at that time was, if the court is simply going to adjourn it based on the possible admission of that video, then we would rather agree to simply keep it out. That way this trial could proceed this week. That was my recollection.
Sure. I'd say that's accurate, yes.
Okay, so listen, these are agreements that we make. But Mr. Johnson is saying essentially, if I now allow that in, that creates a real issue for him, I would think, Mr. Johnson, that, well, wait a minute, if this would have gotten in, or under any circumstances whatsoever, then he would have asked for an adjournment. Am I correct by that, Mr. Johnson?
You're correct, Your Honor.
So, based on us moving forward, I want to make sure, I understand you're saying, well, I'm putting it on you, Judge, but I'm going to hold people to their agreements. And my understanding was that that was the agreement of the two attorneys. Is that correct?
That is what we agreed to, Judge. And again, I guess maybe there could have been a little bit better clarity. I will accept that as the court's ruling, because again, it's my preference to not play this video. And I am perfectly willing.
I believe what the video that they are talking about was the video in which Shanda drags Timothy out, his final moments. Now, Shanda, I believe, is going to make a big stink, or did make a big stink, about her not having said certain things. And since it was a late kind of turn in, it finally got processed. The state was like, okay, fine, I guess we won't put it in. I do like that this judge is holding the state to the agreements, because I think that the state prosecutor, now realizing that Shanda is going to testify, wanted to bring that video in. So the state was actually trying to be a bit, have its cake and eat it too here. And I'm glad that the judge is really keeping this level. Like, no state prosecuting attorney, she's a douche, but you did promise to honor this agreement, so the tape isn't coming in. And I could see how I would be tempted as a state prosecutor, especially if I want this woman to go away forever, and I get access to a tape that basically shows the absolutely demoned in human skin she is. I would be tempted to want to put it in too, but the judge is really doing what a good judge does, making a level and fair playing field, calling balls and strikes and saying, hey, you guys made a choice, you guys made a decision, and I'm going to hold you to it.
Willing to accept at this point that I have the opportunity to, at a minimum, ask Ms. Vander Ark questions about it, and then if she's unable to recall those events, or if she provides an inconsistent statement, that I can certainly confront her with those without presenting that to the jury.
No.
That's acceptable.
I think you're not objecting to that, Mr. Johnson. You're saying, listen, if it's being used as a non-evidentiary tool to refresh recollection or something like that, you don't have an objection to that, but in terms of evidence being admitted to the trier of fact, which is the jury, you have an objection to that.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a ruling right now. It's not gonna be shown as an evidentiary piece. That's based on the agreement between the parties. Part of the agreement to not adjourn this trial. It can be used for other purposes, certainly, but it cannot be admitted to the jury as a piece of evidence. But obviously, the post-death video, as we discussed, was essentially fair game. I think, Mr. Johnson, you'd agree with that, correct?
Yes, sir. That was-
Okay, and Mr. Roberts, you'd agree with that too,
Yes.
correct? Okay, all right.
And I will say that both the state, even though his temptation was to kind of show Shanda in her most monstrous moment, I think that the judge kind of maintaining, I would like to keep Timothy's dignity intact and not that make this salacious, not, put his suffering on display for anything other than let the jury see it, let them be handed individual pieces of paper. I have said it many times, but this trial really restored my faith that for the most part, judges or this judge and this prosecutor did their very best to give Timothy the dignity, the honor, and the respect that his mother and his brother could not, look inside themselves and give this precious child.
All right, good enough. Any other issues, Mr. Roberts?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No, sir, and thank you.
Right, let's bring the jury in. Please rise.
Well, this, quite frankly, anyone, but we are adults in here. I think it's okay. Well, this is going to be very sensitive information, and I don't think it's appropriate for, quite frankly, anyone. But we are adults in here. I don't believe this person is older than 18, and I'm not going to allow a young man to be exposed to this. So, ma'am, I'm going to ask.
Oh my goodness, this judge may have just become my favorite. Again, thinking of the dignity of not only Timothy, but of this young man who, honestly, when I found out I was on jury duty, I prayed hard that I wouldn't get one of these children's cases because I know it was going to tear me up if I got one and I wouldn't be able to say no. So I prayed and prayed that I wouldn't get one. But this judge, what a good judge. Again, saying hey, you're a little young for this. Look, I have to see the dark stuff that humans do to one another, but I'd rather you not be exposed to this.
That if he's old enough to be left in the hall alone, you certainly can stay. If he's not, then I'd have to ask you to step out. You understand? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This calls Shanda Vander Ark.
All right, Ms. Vander Ark, if you can come around here, please.
Stand in front of that chair, raise your right hand, please.
Raise your right hand, please. In this matter now pending, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, yes,
All right, put your hand down, grab a seat. Please state your name for the record, spelling your first name and last name.
Shanda, S-H-A-N-D-A, Vander Ark, V-A-N-D-E-R, space, capital A-R-K.
Thank you, Ms. Vander Ark. You're being called to testify in your own cases. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
And to do that, you have to make sure that everyone can understand you, correct?
Yes, sir.
With you, and knowing you as I do, I don't think volume's gonna be a problem with you.
Probably not, sir.
Talking fast, maybe.
Yes, sir, it might.
Okay, so this is, are you nervous?
Yes, sir.
This is stressful?
Yes, sir, very.
So
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you stressed out? Did you need to get a like an emotional support plushie? Why didn't I think about your feelings, Shanda? I know the defense lawyer has to kind of explain her sort of flat affect and very kind of staccato delivery of her speech, but nerves are not the thing. You are just a totally unpleasant person, but label it whatever you want.
You're gonna be, questions gonna be thrown at you, fast and furious. You've seen how trials work, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And under those circumstances, you may speed up again as I do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You may be reminded from time to time to slow down just a little bit. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, let's make sure everyone understands you. You've been sitting through this trial since the beginning, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were arrested for these offenses alleged back when?
July 7th of 2022.
Okay. So you've been living with this thing for more than, what, 18 months?
17 months, yes, sir.
17 months. So
Yeah, the operative word there is you've been living. Who wasn't? Again, I am going to have no chill for this woman. I am sorry, but this woman is a monster.
you know what we're talking about, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you understand the allegations against you?
Yes, sir.
And that it also helps that you have a legal background, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The things they said about how well you did in school and all those things, were those all true?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't want you sitting there and regaling this, but the things about cum laude and going to law school, all that stuff is true.
It was magna cum laude, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's start.
This is one of the things I've noticed in people like Shanda and Sarah Boone and Todd Anthony Todd. These narcissistic, very like just ego-driven people, they will correct their own lawyers in something pedantic and stupid like this, but because they want to appear smarter or they have to be correct, they have to be in control. It's not a good look, sweetheart. Not to mention, you left all the evidence around. So I wouldn't be bragging about how smart I am legal wise when you left all the evidence of your crime everywhere.
Let's go back to the very beginning. Okay. When did Timothy come to your care?
May of 2021.
Prior to that, who had physical and legal custody of Timothy?
My ex-husband.
Okay. And when he sent, and how did it happen that you ended up with custody then?
My ex reached out to me, stating that Timothy he could no longer handle him, that he was pushing his buttons, and that he needed to send him to live with me.
Okay. And you agreed to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Had you ever lived with Timothy during his
When he was younger, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so, you agreed to accept him into your home?
Yes, sir.
And who was living in your home at the time?
Myself, my husband, Adam, Paul Ferguson, and then my little man, G.
G, okay, that's what we've been calling G, correct?
It's really hard to do, yes, sir.
Okay, just do the.
Now, I want you to notice, and I didn't notice this on my first time through, but the only time this woman genuinely smiles is when she's talking about her youngest son, G. Now, I don't know if Shanda, before Paul came around, and Adam, her, and her youngest son, G, had created a sort of actual functional family kind of unit for as functional as she can get. But the only child that she seems to take genuine joy in that I noticed in anything is G. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be, this minor son who watched your mom be incredibly mean to one brother, have the other one be mean, and have you encouraged to be mean to Timothy as well, I'm sure. And what that must do to your psyche. I only hope that he is getting the love and support he needs as well.
The best you can. Okay, so they're all living in your home, and then Timothy joins you, correct?
Yes, sir.
When Timothy's joining you, Did your ex-husband ever make any effort to transfer legal custody to you?
We discussed it, but he never did actually sign anything.
He couldn't. She relinquished her parental rights. She was by law not supposed to have any custody of minor children. Paul made the choice to move in with Shanda when he was, I believe, of legal age, so 18. She was not supposed to have Timothy. So as much as we have many unknowns about the biological father and his thoughts, feelings, or what led to, him thinking Shanda was a safe place to put his son, it wasn't his job to get this done. They were flouting the law that they agreed to, the rulings in the court in Oklahoma that they agreed to.
No, sir.
Okay. And without legal custody, how do you get Timothy into school?
You can't.
And without legal custody, how do you get medical treatment for Timothy?
You can't.
Did your husband at least send his, I assume he had medical insurance for Timothy, did he send that?
He did not send me. I requested his medical card, his insurance card, and he never sent it to me.
Now, you heard the testimony that Timothy saw the doctor in 2019. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
That was a year before you received him?
2 years before I received it.
2 years before.
Okay, heifer of Hefferton. I don't care what your ex-husband was doing with Timothy. That is a whole other kettle of fish and can of worms I haven't even done opened up yet. But don't you get on your maternal high horse like he hadn't been the doctor in 2 years. Do you really want to try to sit on a high horse with what you did to Timothy?
So, in the prior 2 years before you received him, as far as you know, based on what you heard here, your ex-husband never took him to the doctor?
As far as I know, yes, sir.
How do you know if he had medical insurance for this young man?
He told me he did.
Okay. But he never sent it to you?
No, sir.
Okay. What was your...
And these arguments also negate the fact that Shanda understood the legal system. Shanda worked in local courts. She could probably ask around, hey, look, this is my situation. I know it's not the best, but how would I get, health care? How could I enroll someone in this? She was not without resources. It wasn't like she was completely without any ability to get any of this for Timothy. If she had wanted to get it for him, I'm sure she would have busted out her legal chops and, taken care of it. It just wasn't a priority, and it would have exposed the fact that she wasn't supposed to have Timothy.
What was your financial situation once Timothy arrived and your husband had a stroke?
After the stroke, we
Yes.
lost my husband's income, and it was paycheck to pay, not even paycheck to paycheck. Almost everything was paid late. I was struggling. I asked Paul for help with groceries sometimes because we were struggling.
Okay. And Paul was working full-time?
He was working part-time.
He's working at Applebee's?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Nanny Goat, that is a question I had because my sons, excuse me, all have ADHD, and they have quarterly, med checks to make sure that their weight and their height and everything is going correctly, especially with medications like that. So any of your, Ritalin or Adderall or any of your attention deficit medication is going to be on a I think it's an every 3 month, checkup to make sure that they are gaining weight, that their height and weight aren't affected, that they're not experiencing sleeplessness or constipation or a lot of the different side effects. So I do have questions about this. We are getting all of this information from Shanda, so I take it with a grain of salt. But I have a feeling that Timothy's life with his biological father was still chaotic. Given kind of some of the things that have slipped out from the older children in their victim impact statement. I don't have any paperwork or any documentation, but my speculation is that Timothy's life with his father was probably not as as terrible as it was with Shanda, but was it a nurturing and, you know, a nurturing environment where someone with his special needs would be, you know, engaged, enriched, get the therapy and extra support that he needed? I don't think so. Again, that's only going on what I've heard from, you know, different things in the victim impact statement, but it seemed like Shanda and the biological father were a hot mess express.
Okay. So he's working part-time, and so what, were you receiving any child support?
No,
So the entire financial burden was on you.
correct.
Could you have, afforded daycare for any of your children?
Absolutely not, no.
And could you have afforded any extra expenses other than the ones that you were providing for?
No,
What type of expenses were you able to provide for this family?
just basic living expenses.
Rent,
Yes, sir.
utilities,
Yes, sir.
food?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that leads to the next question I have for you. You had monitors and cameras in your home, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the impression from the testimony I heard is that it was for the sole purpose of ensuring that Timothy could not get the food. Is that accurate?
No.
Why did you have all those monitors and cameras in your home?
When Timothy came to live with us, his stepmother informed me that they'd had motion sensors. They weren't as tech savvy as I was. I worked in tech before law school.
Oh, yes, Shanda, we know you're a tech genius. I mean, you're like Trinity from The Matrix. Oh, this woman. Again, I don't know if this was actually information that was relayed to Shanda. What I can tell you is that the story about the, you know, video cameras has kind of evolved. At first, Shanda said that they were only because her youngest child, you know, his room was in the basement. Her husband had mobility issues, and he had the habit of taking all of his clothes off when he was a toddler, and her husband couldn't, you know, crawl up and down the stairs, so he would keep an eye on him through the monitor. Now, why you buy a split level house with a husband with mobility issues, I do not understand. That being said, as I say that, as a person with mobility issues who is limited to 1/3 of her house because we bought it before I had mobility issues, we have looked at ranch styles, and it is hard to find the amount of space you need for a larger family in a ranch because they're typically not for giant families. So I say that with the understanding that finding, you know, mobility friendly homes is very, very hard. But at the time, they were only Shanda, Adam, and the minor child. So finding a 3-bedroom ranch should not, or a 2-bedroom ranch shouldn't have been a hard thing.
I worked in tech support for several years. But they had motion sensors and she told me that she didn't sleep at night. She only slept when he was at school because he was into everything. And so because my younger child, he used to, when he was about 2, he would take all his clothes off. So we started putting a camera in his room. And then once we moved to the Marshall Road location, it was bi-level. My husband was born with a disability. My husband was wheelchair bound. So we had an extra wheelchair that we kept on the upper level. That's where the master bedroom was. But that way, if G was down in his bedroom, my husband could talk to him through the camera and have him come up. It was much easier. My husband could crawl down the steps before the stroke, but we didn't want him to have to crawl up and down those steps.
Okay. And again, let's go back to the issue of food. Was food the only reason why you felt you had to monitor Timothy, or were there other issues?
There were plenty of issues, sir.
So, well, first of all,
Okay, I want you to go back. Again, I have asked you guys to look, but every time Timothy is mentioned, there is this micro flash of anger, and maybe you guys will catch it, but pay attention. Check and see if she ever says anything without a touch of derision, a touch of sarcasm, a touch of just, you know, whatever. When she says something about Timothy, this woman cannot help herself. I think she, down to the core of her, hated Timothy for some reason. I'm not a doctorologist, but look at this micro flash of of anger that she really tries to hide, but isn't good at it.
Monitor Timothy, or were there other issues?
There were plenty of issues, sir.
So, well, first of all.
Yeah, there. That look over to the jury like, kids, am I right?
What, we've heard some testimony as to Timothy's special needs. What were his special needs?
He was on the autism spectrum, but he was completely verbal, and he was grade level in school. He was not behind in school at all. He was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He was diagnosed as bipolar and sensory processing disorder. I heard Paul mention physical disability. He didn't have any. Now, Timothy, when he first got there, said he had a physical disability, and I asked his stepmom about it to make sure, and she said no, he was not coordinated at all. The first summer that he lived with us, my youngest was playing baseball, and Timothy actually mentioned, because we had planned to put him in public high school, I'm going to try out for the baseball team, and I didn't say anything to him, but I remember thinking, sorry, sweetie, there's no way, you don't have the coordination for that.
Even in his death, she can't say something nice about him. She's like, no, you're not going to make it on the baseball team. You have no chance. And she just could not wait. And it smiled. It brought joy to be able to demean her son. I could be reading a lot into this. Granted, I read her as a she-demon from the depths of hell, so I don't give her any grace with anything she says.
And he liked to take, well, you tell me, did he like to take things apart?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Can you give some examples?
He took batteries apart, he took toys apart, my youngest son's toys. If he could get a hold of anything from Paul's room, he would take, like, mostly it was Legos. Paul still had Legos. He, at one point, messed with our water heater.
What do you mean?
He actually turned the gas off to the water heater. He knocked out the pilot light and then turned the gas off as well at different points.
Okay. Did you have any concerns as to whether or not his predilections, his desire to get into things, might be a safety hazard for either him or somebody else in the home?
I was extremely concerned about that, yes, sir.
So it was your desire was it just your desire to monitor Timothy, or did you also have a younger child in the home that you wanted to monitor?
We had both.
Okay. Was it, well, who did you want to monitor? One or the other, or both?
Both.
Okay. All right. So you set up these video and audio cameras, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And alarms on the doors?
Those didn't get installed until about 3 weeks before he passed away.
Okay. And
Make that make sense, Shanda, because according to you, why was it 3 weeks before his death when he was already faking, not being able to walk, when he was, having obvious trouble walking up and down the stairs? So you wouldn't have needed to add those alarms if he was as uncoordinated and unmobile as you both said he was faking to be. So make it make sense, unless you were trying to catch him faking his malnutrition.
motion sensors?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He got around the motion sensors multiple times.
Were you able to?
Good.
Were you able to stay home and personally monitor your children?
No, I had to work full-time.
Okay. How were you able to get, specifically, were you able to get Timothy into school?
No, we were not. We tried to enroll him in Mona Shores High School, and Mona Shores told me that my ex, I guess Timothy had damaged a Chromebook in Oklahoma, and because my ex owed money on that, they would not send his records up to us. So we were not able to.
Wouldn't it be convenient if someone knew like laws and stuff and could work with, the school and say, hey, it's vital that my son have a right to an education. Now I am in a tenuous state with his biological father and I am not able to pay the $50. Is there a program, reduced tuition, anything that I might qualify for? Because I guarantee you, if they were Shanda's transcripts, she would have found a way, move heaven and earth to get those, and she would have gotten into school.
To enroll him. So I found online homeschool curriculum that I had to monitor, but I enrolled him in that.
Let me make sure I understand. Was it your original intention to put Timothy into public schools?
Yes, sir. We started the process. I filled out the paperwork. Because of my work schedule, I couldn't actually take paperwork to Mona Shores. My husband did that, Adam did that. But yes, we did try to get him enrolled.
Okay, and the youngest child, G, was he in public schools?
No, he was homeschooled.
What about Paul? Do you know if he was homeschooled or if he, when he got to you, was he still in school?
No, he had graduated high school.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, you mentioned that you weren't able to stay at home and care for your children at home, in the home, as a stay-home parent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what type of, I assume you're out working?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Where are we going with
Explain
this?
to the jury the work that you did during the period of time that Timothy arrived in your home.
I was, when he first arrived, I was still studying for the bar exam, so my husband was working full-time, and I was just doing, I trained dogs on the side, everything from basic obedience up through different types of service dogs for other people.
This is
And
actually
so
better. I
had a
don't
couple
like
of
seeing
dog training
Shanda.
clients, but mostly I was studying for the bar exam. I also was an intern here in this courthouse at
That
that
pay a
time.
lot of money?
Oh, it was not paid at all, sir.
Okay.
But it was the week of the bar exam. My judge that I worked for here as a law clerk informed me of this position that was open in Nuevo County, and she knew that the judge referred me, and that's when I did the interview, and I started work, I think it was 2 days after I completed the bar exam.
Okay. Was that a paid position?
Yes, it was.
Was it lucrative enough where you didn't have to do any other work?
Well, with my husband's income, it was,
Okay. But your husband's income stopped when he got sick?
when he had the stroke, yes.
Okay. So at that point, was it enough income to provide for you and your family?
No.
Were you receiving any other outside incomes?
My older brother lives in the home that I still own in Oklahoma, and he paid rent to us.
Okay.
But it wasn't a lot. That went towards our house rent.
Child support?
No, my ex, one of the siblings was forgotten yesterday. There's 5 total. We talked about the 4 boys. I also have a daughter. She is now 19, but she stayed down with her dad.
Okay.
So we each had one, so there was no child support, and because of child support on the other 4 kids, I actually was still paying my ex child support. It was still being deducted from my check.
Okay. So you had, that's another deduction from your income?
$1,000 a month.
Oh, poor Shanda. She had to pay child support on the kids that she lost rights to because she couldn't treat them like a mother. Won't someone think of Shanda, the Land O'Lakes butter girl with a butter face?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, were you also doing tutoring when you went to the judge who was paying you? Were you still tutoring or doing any other outside work?
Not at that. I was doing the dog training.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What time in the morning did you leave to go to work?
I usually left the house about 6:30,
And what time, on an average, were you getting home?
about 6 o'clock.
Okay. So we're talking about 12 hours away from the home.
Yes, sir.
Okay, those monitors, the video cameras in your home, you were able to view them while at work?
From my phone, occasionally, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, she owed.
And
She
you were-
wasn't
But you were
paying.
still working.
Yes, sir. I didn't view them at all until after the stroke. I mean, because my husband was there, or we had arrangements where my husband was off certain days of the week. Paul was off one day, specifically one day a week, so he took care of Gabriel and Timothy. And then the other 2 days that I needed care for Gabriel when my husband was working, he actually went to my in-laws' house down in West Olive.
May I approach the witness for just a moment, John?
You may.
And I will say that the defense, as much as, dear God, could you just find a point? Like simple questions. Don't try to make them like, friggin' Johnny Carson questions. Simple questions. We don't need to meander all over the English language. Just get a succinct question out there. I will say that the defense, as much as I have just railed on his inability to ask a coherent question, they have all done a really good job at trying to keep her youngest son's name out of this, to try to give him as much of a normal life without this shadowing his future and his past as they can. So I will say that they have done a really good job trying to protect both Timothy and little man's, kind of dignity and, future and legacy as far as how they treated this in trial. But notice there's another smile. So when she
Let's see.
thinks about G, she
So
smiles.
you have 3 children at home?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and my understanding is you faced other challenges personally in terms of your own personal health. Is that
Yes, sir, I
correct?
did.
Okay. For instance, let's run down the list. You have insomnia.
Severe insomnia caused by attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay.
Same. And let's continue, ma'am. Let's see who wins the I'm More Cripple Olympics.
And for those folks who get a great night's sleep every night, don't understand what insomnia does to your ability to function, can you explain to them what impact chronic insomnia has on a person?
It limits your ability to think clearly.
So wait, you were able to function at DEF CON level bitch cunt, 4,000 with less sleep? You are able to be this sadistic, this hateful, this evil on less sleep, so we should feel sorry for you? I have 6 children. My oldest is going to turn 19 at the end of this month, and I have not had a full night of sleep in 20 years because I'm a light sleeper and I tend to want to check on all my kids throughout the night just to make sure they're breathing. I never put that on any of my kids and say, oh, they keep me up so much. I've just been a light sleeper. I don't expect anyone to martyr me, and I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me because I'm a light sleeper. It just has become my life, and I function. Ugh, this woman.
Your energy level is greatly reduced. Takes a lot longer to process things. You forget things easier. It was much harder to function with so little sleep.
Okay. And you talked about your other personal disorders. Were you receiving medications for those?
I was for, I have severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder combined type. I also have sensory processing disorder and OCD. And then after my husband's stroke, as a result of my husband's stroke, because I viewed him, I wasn't in the room when he had the stroke, but I was there right afterwards. And so I developed post-traumatic stress disorder with disassociation from that. The only medication that I was on.
This post-traumatic stress disorder with dissociative properties was never diagnosed by what we would like to call a licensed or, accredited therapist. This is an idea that Shanda came up with. Disassociation doesn't really happen the way she says. So this is all stuff that she has given herself a la Tumblr.
Was for the ADHD.
Okay.
Well, at least the post-traumatic stress.
And you had the service dogs in your presence too?
I had one service dog for me, yes, sir.
Okay. What sorts of interventions were available for Timothy's disorders?
When he came to us, he was on medication. They gave us a whole, large gallon-sized Ziploc bag of medications for him. I could not refill them because I could not get him to the doctor. We were going to try to adjust his medication because when he came to live with us, when he took his medicine, he was a zombie.
So I did want to share something with you guys. So these kind of things that you saw Paul do with his face, this is, again, pure speculation. Again, do I have to put on the speculation hat? I will put on the speculation conductor hat of speculationness. Although I do kind of look like a Confederate now, so maybe not the best look to try with a high ponytail. Just take my word for it, speculation, okay? But I have a feeling that Shanda and her her first husband, Paul and Timothy, and her other children's biological father might have been the type of parents to medicate their children rather than deal with behavioral problems without medication. And certain of the early sort of mental health medications that they would give to kids with ADHD or mental health issues as children have very severe side effects. And one of them is called, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, tardive dyskinesia, but basically it's these uncontrolled mouth, eye, facial, and possibly hand movements that come from the use of these sort of really heavy duty kind of drugs that could be used for bipolar or reactive attachment disorder, a lot of these things. So that is a side effect. So one of the things that I think deeply disconcerted people about Paul was sort of these uncontrollable facial movements. And again, that's why I say speculation, but I would guess that at a young age, all the kids there were medicated rather than, taken to therapy, allegedly. And that could be the source of at least partially some of the weird kind of facial movements that he has. But the absolute nerve of this woman who goes out of her way to make sure her OCD, her insomnia, her hypoglycemia, all have, corrections, and she has made a space in her environment to adapt to those. But, the medication her son's on, he was a zombie. I didn't like it. I made the choice. He went off of it. Did she, wean him off of this, or did she go cold turkey for him? My guess is cold turkey. And if you wonder what it's like coming off some of these medications when you've been on them long term as a child, no wonder he was acting out. No wonder he was getting into things. His brain was screaming.
It was just horrific. And when Paul came to live with us, 'cause
Possibly.
Paul had only been there a year when Timothy moved up, sorry. And when Paul, he was on the same big bag of medication, and there were serious concerns that they just, instead of handling, especially my ex, he wanted to medicate them. But I never got that option because I couldn't take him to the doctor.
Okay. All right. There's been some allegation, there's been some implications, put it that way, that you tried to keep people from seeing Timothy, that you tried to keep him away from public view, that he didn't go to school, he didn't go to the doctor, etc. That he went outside, he was in the backyard. You remember that testimony?
Yes, sir.
If someone's outside in your backyard, are there trees or fences or other obstacles to keep the neighbors from looking over there and seeing who's out in your yard?
No, there was a clearing before, there was woods at the back of the lot, but there was a clearing, and at least the neighbors on each side, there were pretty sizable windows on the back of their homes. They weren't I think the next door was a 2-level, but the one on one side was just a single level. It may have had a basement, I don't know. But there was big windows, and they could see into our backyard easily.
Okay.
That's not the point. The point is that you went out of your way to limit where he would see. Most people aren't going to want to hang out and look into your backyard, Shanda. My guess is that you are a bright ray of, well, shut the hell up every moment of your life before this. So I am sure that your neighbors didn't want to hang out with you. But the fact is that the backyard is still much more secluded than the front yard or letting Timothy walk the dog around the neighborhood. So you can wiggle your way out of this and say, well, look, they had windows in their back. They could have seen if they wanted to. It's still the fact that most people are trained, to not look in your neighbors' backyards.
Was
Unless
it
you're
ever your
nosy.
intention to keep people from seeing Timothy?
No, my mother-in-law saw him. We had they do rental home inspections, I guess the city of Norton Shores. I don't remember if it was late April or early May of 2022, but it was in that neighborhood. And so we'd had the inspection that day, and my mother-in-law happened to stop by that day. And I invited her in. We sat and talked, and Timothy wanted to come say hi, so he came up and said hi to her.
Now, you're a Muskegon County transplant, correct? You're
Yes, I'm not from around here.
So, and I'm assuming that your direct biological family, there's not a lot of them in this county?
There's no, I don't have, other than my children, I don't have any biological family here.
Okay. How far away are they?
My older brother is in Oklahoma City, and then I have 2 sisters that I have not talked to in over 20 years, and they live in Alabama, where I'm from.
Okay. So how often do those folks, your bio family, stop by and to see how sister's doing?
The last time I saw my older brother was when we went down to North Carolina for my oldest son's wedding in October of 2021, and then my brother and sister-in-law drove over from Oklahoma for the wedding as well. We FaceTimed a lot. We watch football games on FaceTime, but I didn't get to see them after we moved up here.
Okay. Do you have a lot of friends in the area that will come by, will stop by on, maybe on, does it happen to be in the area, that sort of thing? That will come by and visit your home?
Most of my friends were from work, and they actually, because I worked in Newaygo County, they lived in Newaygo or Oceana County, or even further. I don't know, I'm not from here, I don't know what county is next to Newaygo East, but I know at least one person from work lived in, I think it's Big Rapids.
Yes.
So no, they didn't stop by because they were too far away.
Did you have a lot of time for social interactions at your home?
No.
Okay, I'm going to take a moment to stop right here and thank all the single moms, all the single dads, all the aunties and uncles and grandmas and grandpas that stood up and, took care of children, when life circumstances happened and life kicked them in the teeth and they still managed to be parents. My mom moved to a state with no family, with 2 kids, a new career, a place she knew no one. And we managed to have, a nice apartment. I never went hungry. I maybe didn't have name brand stuff, but I had nice stuff. So I'm sorry, but not having family, having a bad time in life doesn't excuse whatever the hell you think it does, Miss Shanda.
Not at all.
And how about Paul? Did he have friends that he'd bring by, or
No, he talked about people at work, but he never asked to bring anybody over.
was he ever given any instructions, you can't have people in this house?
Absolutely not.
And what about the youngest child, G? Did he have any friends for sleepovers or anything like that?
We didn't have any friends over for, no. He played baseball. Because of me not being able to get out, he didn't get out a lot. I mean, I wish I could have gotten him out more. That's why we put him in baseball, so he could get around other kids more. I had been looking into homeschool co-ops, but with my schedule, I just couldn't do that.
Okay. What would you say was more impactful in terms of your, get Timothy out of the house? Was it your desire he not get out of the house, or your work requirements?
It was work requirements and his choice. There was, I want to say it was April, the weather was half.
JKD Buck, my mom sold all her jewelry and nice clothes to feed us, still went hungry at times because someone didn't want to pay their child support in an effort to hurt mom. Yeah, there are real moms, real parents out there, Oh, and my pause game is on top of. You can actually see the demon emerging from her left eyeball. Yeah, moms do it, dads do it. You're a parent. You just get up and do it. You're tired. Or you say, "Hey kids, I didn't want any of that, whatever. I'm full." So it's really hard to get to listen to her. And again, the fact that she has no perception of how absolutely off-putting this "won't somebody think of my suffering" uh, you know, narrative she's trying to put out here would be to jurors. I mean, to not have the self-awareness, you could have 180 IQ. If you have no awareness of how you appear to other people, then you are dumb, because we're a social species. And if everyone thinks you're a douche, but you're a smart douche, you're still a douche.
Quite decent. I guess people here were, I mean, there was kids down the street, there was teenagers playing basketball when I came home from the grocery store one weekend. And I stopped and rolled my window down and said, "Hey, I've got a 15-year-old at home. Can he come play with y'all?" Even though I knew he wasn't coordinated, I thought he would enjoy it. And they said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And he did not want to go play.
Okay. Did he ever request to go play, and you denied him?
No, he never did. Actually, Paul, we had, mom and dad, my in-laws, got Timothy a bike for his 15th birthday. And Paul and we were on a cul-de-sac. And Paul had tried to teach him to ride the bike.
Okay.
I know they had a few sessions, I don't know how many.
Okay. So on those occasions, he'd be outside
Oh
in
yeah, he
front
was
of the
out in
house?
in front of the house on the cul-de-sac.
Okay. All right.
And I want you to think about this, and this has always struck me as very, very interesting as just a concept. So Timothy, admitted by Shanda, a not coordinated person, and so she wants Paul to go teach him how to ride a bike. Well, you have a not coordinated person who has to become very vulnerable and trust this person who's been nothing but a bully to him, his entire life. So no wonder he didn't want to learn how to ride the bike. I'm sure if he had had a patient and kind teacher that didn't get frustrated with him if he fell down or made a mistake, he would have probably enjoyed bicycling. But the fact that it's just the fact that she isn't even aware of how, if you are an uncoordinated person, if this is a balance thing. And maybe I'm more aware of this as someone who is fearful of falls now because I have less mobility. It might not be something that I would have even contemplated, sort of the vulnerability that you are in when you're learning how to ride a bike or you're doing something, kind of one of these, childhood passages. And we're usually okay to be vulnerable because we know our parents or the person that's teaching us loves us, cares for us, and doesn't want to see us suffer. And Timothy didn't have that. So no wonder he didn't want to learn how to ride a freaking bike.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the things that have come up in this case. There were, okay, there are leg irons discovered in your home. Were you aware of those?
I was aware that Paul had them. You actually could look on my Amazon. Paul had the option to do payment on the Amazon as well as mine. And Paul had actually ordered those under his account.
Okay, you did not order the leg irons?
I did not, no.
Did you ever use them?
No, sir. No, I never instructed.
Let's be in specific. Did you ever use them with Timothy?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever notice any bruising on Timothy's wrists or legs that might be attributable to the use of leg iron?
No, sir. I never saw anything like that.
You heard Paul talk about plastic ties. What was that about?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
I don't know why we would order. I mean, I saw the ties. I don't remember ordering them. I don't know what happened there.
You're gonna say I don't.
This is a spoiler alert, and her lawyer was just getting ready to meander into this. But Shanda's not gonna remember a whole lot, because now in her very special and clinically unique to her brand of post-traumatic stress disorder with dissociative, I guess, aspects, whenever she allegedly got stressed during this time after her husband had a stroke to Timothy passing, she just can't remember not a daggone thing. It's like a totally out of body experience. So this is going to be something that is very, very apparent. Now her lawyer is going to let her get away with it. The state, not so much. And the state is going to bring out what I like to call the very refined snark.
Remember a lot, aren't you?
Unfortunately, yes, because of the dissociation.
Okay. Explain to the jury what that means.
Well, I guess there's different forms. Somebody told me this. I did not find out about the PTSD and the disassociation until about 7 months after my husband's stroke, even though it had been going on since the stroke.
I need to place an objection on the record, and I think we're going to have to excuse the jury.
Okay. These rights?
Dun, dun, dun. Does Shanda have an actual diagnosis of PTSD with dissociative aspects? Let's stay tuned to find out.
We'll have to excuse you back to the jury room.
Mr. Roberts.
Well, first and foremost, Your Honor, she's not qualified to testify about what disassociation means and what disassociation, what affects disassociation. Anything that she knows about that presumably would have been told to her by a doctor. We've already been down the road. Mr. Johnson's, to my knowledge, has tried multiple doctors that would be able to provide a diagnosis of Ms. Vander Ark to indicate that she has, some type of disassociation or some type of mental disorder which would have contributed to this offense, and has not done so. That's an insanity defense. We covered that extensively. Mr. Johnson, I think, valiantly tried to get that and has been unable to provide any information to me from any medical doctor who's examined Ms. Vander Ark that she suffers from any of these diagnoses. So I'm objecting to this entire line.
Shocked Pikachu face. Shanda doesn't have a doctor that will testify for her. Where was that crazy doctor, Dr. Beverly Lewis? We are probably going to be covering the initial trial that I covered, so the Letitia Stalk. Not soon. Look, honest to goodness, I can't do another kid one for a while. So I have a couple other trials lined up. But definitely, she was the queen of dissociative identity disorder. So you think they would have been able to get her. Now, her son did kind of, well, stank up the joint when he lit a fatty in, the courthouse because he was stressed. And she did seem a whole lot high as balls, but it would have been entertaining.
Questioning about disassociation, about why she can't remember certain things. If she wants to say she just can't remember, I guess she can just say she can't remember, but she doesn't get to use the excuse that this is disassociation. Furthermore, I have a doctor still on standby as a potential rebuttal witness who did examine Ms. Vander Ark. It's the report from the Forensic Center, which Mr. Johnson has, which essentially debunks this entire disassociation myth that she doesn't remember things or chooses not to remember things because of some disassociation. So I'm objecting to this entire line of questioning. It's an inappropriate, essentially, defense that's being raised here. It sounds like it's almost like a diminished capacity type defense, which we all know is not a valid defense. And I'm not on notice of any insanity defense or any doctor who would provide a diagnosis meaningful for the jury so they understand what these things actually mean.
All right, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Initially, let me tell you what it's not. It's not an insanity defense. It is, and certainly my client can testify as to what she knows. Now, if the people are at liberty to examine her as to what she knows and how she might know that, and determine that her sources of information aren't adequate or that her understanding is inadequate. But certainly, I can ask her what she knows and how what she knows corresponds to what's going on with her physically and mentally. Those do not rise to insanity defense, and certainly if she says, I don't remember, she can explain why. If she were a drunk and she said, I can't remember because I was drunk that night, we would allow that in. If she says, I can't remember because it's this association thing, then that should be allowable. It doesn't.
Okay, so here's my argument on why that's a stupid thought. Because we all collectively as a society understand and have a basic understanding of sort of the symptomology and sort of the decreased, higher executive function, the lack of coordination. So we all have a kind of uniform or ubiquitous sort of, constellation of things that being drunk entails. We all sort of have a personal and maybe collective cultural kind of understanding of what intoxication looks like. Now, disassociation, and especially the way she is using it, would be a medical term or a term of art in therapy, psychiatry, and other things. And there is not a ubiquitous kind of understanding of what disassociation is. And she isn't a therapist, psychologist, or even a phrenologist, though I would argue she has a criminal head shape. For those of you who don't know, phrenologists were from Victorian times. They would test your head, and depending on where you had little like divots, they would say that it would affect certain aspects of your personality, and they coined the term a criminal head shape. Apparently, like certain divots meant you were more predisposed to be possibly incorrigibly criminal. That being said, it has more scientific basis than Shanda's diagnosis.
Rise to a legal defense. It doesn't arise to a argument of insanity. What it does is an explanation simply of what she did next. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why don't you remember these things? That's what this explains. And quite frankly, that I think is relevant, and it's certainly I think permissible at this point. If the people have an expert that they can bring in and say, hey, look, that's not what's going on with this woman, that's their call. But to say she can't even talk about it because somebody else may disagree with her is not the standard. The standard here is the information relevant, and certainly did she act upon it, certainly. And she's acting upon this information, and does it explain an issue for which the jury has to determine. They have to determine intention. And quite frankly, if she doesn't even remember the conduct that she's involved with, certainly that goes to show that she didn't make I would argue that it shows that she didn't make an informed choice to do the things that happened in that household. But certainly she gets a chance to explain why it is, I don't remember, because that's gonna be her answer. I don't remember. And so she gets a chance to explain that, and that's all we're asking here. We're not gonna argue that this is a defense. It's just simply an explanation for why she did what she did.
All right, Mr. Roberts.
Well, she can certainly answer she doesn't remember. Absolutely, she can answer that. What she can't do is testify about a diagnosis that she says that she's been provided by somebody and an explanation for what that diagnosis means. She's not a doctor. Anything that she learned to talk about disassociation was provided to her by hearsay. And that those individuals, if that is going to be the testimony and disassociation is the defense, then I want the doctor here that examined her and diagnosed her with having disassociation so she can conveniently forget the horrible things that happened in this case. It's all hearsay. It's not the same thing as intoxication.
So, Mr. Johnson, I think, you're going to ask her if she doesn't remember, assuming she's going to answer no. Well, why don't you not remember? She's going to say, well, because I have this dissociation disorder, right? I think you'd have to lay the foundation for that testimony. And the foundation for that testimony would be hearsay, would be from some other source. She's obviously not a doctor. She can't self-diagnose herself. She's not been admitted as an expert, so she
And Tumblr weeps. Reddit destroyed. It's no self-diagnosis. No.
She can, as a layperson, testify to what she feels and those things rationally based upon her feelings and what she sees and understands. So I don't think it's an objectionable. She can say, I don't remember. Why don't you remember? Well, because, I black out. Now, your example was drunk driving. Well, a layperson can say, hey, listen, in my experience, when I drink 8 beers, I, stumble, I can't really remember, those kind of things. And it's rationally based on her perception. And she can describe those things that are happening to her. I think that's fair. But in order to say, yes, that is exactly dissociation disorder or this, there's got to be a foundation laid for that.
Yes, sir.
And she cannot lay that foundation. And if she's going to, again, that would be hearsay. Again, if a doctor comes in and says, we told her this, that lays the foundation, okay, fine. But I think Mr. Roberts is correct when he says that foundation has not been laid, which would then implicate him bringing in a doctor to say that's not true. So based on that, I am going to sustain the objection. Again, you can still ask her about what she felt, what she heard, what she saw, the symptoms she experienced. I don't think you're objecting to that, Mr. Roberts. Is that correct?
Well, symptoms makes me a little bit nervous. I guess we can address it on a
Okay.
answer by answer basis.
And if she says, hey, look, I felt heart palpitations, or I felt my blood pressure going up, or I felt...
Oh, certainly
Okay.
talking about physical impacts on
Okay.
your own body. Sure, anybody
Okay.
can testify to those things.
Right.
But tying it to any specific diagnosis is just inappropriate
Okay.
because there's no foundation, as the court's indicated.
I agree. All
Thank
right,
you.
so objection is sustained.
Do you understand, we can't talk about disassociation? We can't use that term?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Secondly, Judge, and a few moments ago, I was given permission to approach my client. I whispered something in her ear. She was using Gabriel's name.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
John, I did hear. Mr. Roberts caught that too.
That was about it,
Yeah, so, no, I didn't say anything then, and I understand.
Okay.
We've been, practice, I've seen you in practice. You haven't actually practiced in front of me yet, but I certainly have seen you in action, so I think, I trust that you're not doing anything nefarious, so,
Thank you, Your Honor.
yeah. All right, anything else, Mr. Roberts?
No, sir.
Okay, let's bring him back up. Please rise.
Ms. Vander Ark, you've told the jury about how busy you are, and you told the jury that you had some physical things going on with you, correct?
Yes, sir.
How did those things impact you in terms of your ability to think clearly, organize, and follow through on information?
Nanny Go, Mo, have you seen the news article that came out? The newest fad to deal with stress is to suck on a binky. I did, but I had to spend 2 years, count them, 2 middle school years. So 75 years in middle school time due to the middle school time suck dilation theory of moology in a headgear. I will not do one because I loved sucking my thumb. Now, part of the reason I was bucktooth is because I have, well, a lot of crowding and just terrible teeth genetically, but I also sucked my thumb until I was like 9. So I will not do anything that in any way will lead to bucktoothness. Like that would just be an anxiety creator for me. But I did see that it's a trend, and if you didn't live in a headgear and it's not my dental or orthodontic bills, if it helps you out, I mean, it's only slightly, well, it's only slightly weirder than vaping, and I do that, so I can't really judge most people. But there you go. Oh no, I know. I saw it for adults. That's why, but I won't be sucking on a binky because oh my God, I am not going through a headgear again. Just no way, no how. I worked too damn hard in middle school to deal with the, well, emotional torture and general bullying that's created this lovely person you see here, and I'm not going through it again. Just know. We could come out with a super mo, and we don't know if the universe is ready to handle that.
Starting right after my husband's stroke, I started experiencing episodes where if you've ever passed out, like the world close, you get tunnel vision and the world closes in on you until you completely black out. It felt like I was blacking out, but I didn't actually pass out. And the events that happened after that, I have no idea what happened. I don't remember it. I don't know.
Okay.
And this happened anytime I got even a little stressed. This would happen.
So you're understanding, you're under oath right now, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're asked to
Okay, so you're telling me that at any point you would get stressed, you would essentially go into a fugue state. And you're telling me no one at your job made kind of notes like, hey, Shanda, I notice we're a little busy and you're over here pretending to pet a dog. Is something going on? Or, hey, Shanda, you were kind of zoned out all of yesterday. You didn't respond when I was talking to you. Is there anything going on? Are you telling me that there weren't instances where she kind of wandered into a CVS, without shoes on because she slept while being awake? Make it make sense, Shanda. This was such a ridiculous thing to try to sell because it just, there is no way anyone's going to buy this. Again, for someone who is so completely about control, she wanted to control Timothy to the point that even his bodies, because of his autism or, hypersensitivity to sensory input, when his body wouldn't submit to Shanda's control, she killed him. I mean, she basically wanted to control every aspect of his life to the point of, and I don't think she wanted to end his life. I think she was having way too much fun. But I think she was having so much fun, and this is horrible that you have to think about this, but I don't think she saw how dire this situation had gotten. It's almost like, and it's a weird analogy to liken this to, but follow me. When you're a kid and you have a report due in 3 weeks, and 3 weeks is essentially in kid time, like 4.5 years from now. And so it gets to be like, 2 weeks, and you're like, oh, I should probably like start thinking about that stuff. And then it comes 1 week and you're like, oh, that's still like 2 years in kid time. We're fine. Then it comes to like the night before and your mother and you are hysterically gluing things onto the board because you didn't realize how big the project was. Kind of like that in reverse, in that she had spent so much time on this project and it was her favorite little, thing she wanted to do, that she didn't realize how much Timothy had deteriorated. She thought she was doing enough to keep him going. She was blind to how incredibly awful she made this situation for him.
tell the truth right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're asking you that you not guess at anything.
Correct.
Okay, do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
So it is if you don't understand, we need to say you don't, or you don't remember, we need to say those things.
Correct.
Okay. And you did testify that these symptoms and this pressure impacted your recollections, is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And then there's the final pressure. You're raising children and teenage children, some of them in your home at the same
Yes.
time. So all these things are going on at once, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
While you're at work monitoring, and you've got the ability to monitor the home, would your job permit you, did you have the ability to sit in front of a monitor and watch the home all the time? Or were there times that you could not do that?
Most of the time I couldn't do it
And why is that?
because I had work to do. Part of the time I was in court with my judge, and then most of the time I was doing research or doing other tasks.
Pay attention to her use of being in court. That is going to become very paramount to something that the state prosecutor is going to bring up. Because when we get to the cross on the state, they're going to bring up the fact that Paul sent that really emaciated photo, I think, of both Timothy's leg and then a separate photo of his back showing how his spine and bony prominences were sticking through his skin. Now, Shanda is going to claim that she's never gotten a clear look at this photo. And she is going to pretend to upchuck. No, that's not the one she upchucks on. She upchucks on the autopsy picture fakely, because as anyone, a mom, or if you've been through morning sickness, or you've just had, a stomach flu, when you make the gagging sounds, if you really upchuck, there's a liquidy sound after that. So she has these excuses that don't fly in any sort of empathetic or, human kind of sphere. But she will use the fact that she was in court, especially for the 3 weeks before his death photos that Paul sent. Like, look, I was on my iPhone and I really couldn't see. And so I thought he was okay. Like, I just said, give him some food. She just has no ability to understand how incredibly poorly she is coming off. She probably thinks she's doing a great job, that she is convincing all of us that she's a good and stressed out mother who just lost her way. And, she was in such a vulnerable state, then Paul took advantage of her by, being too mean to Timothy. And she was so confused, she didn't know what was going on until it was too late. Because that story doesn't sell, because it has not one iota of truth behind it.
That my judge or one of the other judges in the county assigned. So I didn't have time to do that.
When you're watching the videos on the phone, you said you watched them with your telephone screen, correct?
Correct.
And it is a standard screen, nothing special about it?
It was an iPhone, I think it was a 12.
Okay. I've seen those video cameras systems where you can have 4 different cameras going all at one time, all the same screen. Was that your situation, or did you move from camera to camera and only have that camera visible?
No, the cameras were different brands and different cameras, so you could only do one at a time.
Okay, all right. So, and were you wearing an iWatch as well?
An Apple Watch, yes.
Apple Watch, thank you. Were you able to monitor your children from the Apple Watch?
No.
Okay. So if you were, say, in a courtroom like this and you're doing your job, you got a message on your Apple Watch, what would you get?
You could get messages and pictures. You couldn't see it. I mean, the screen was tiny, but you could get messages, and then there's certain like pat responses, like pre-programmed responses, or you can type with your finger.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about a specific email or text that you received that accompanied a picture. It's the one that the prosecutors given to the jury that shows Timothy from the chest up and then his legs. You know the one I'm talking about?
I have heard about it. I have not actually seen these pictures.
Shut the hell up, you skanky heifer. Now, it will be proven, again, because the state is going to make an issue of this because of Shanda's little fake gagging here, later on in the stream. But Shanda has thumbed through all of this. They actually have video footage because this is a streamed trial of her going through all of these photographs, going through the text messages, talking to her lawyers about this stuff. So this would be what we call a LIO.
You respond to it, how's it count, can that be?
I typed on we were in court that day. I actually think I responded, I'm in court. I scribbled out a message real quick back to
Okay.
Paul.
Okay, so did you see the photograph afterwards?
No, I had too many messages on my phone, I don't usually scroll back.
Okay, so how did you know to respond?
Okay. Says no mother ever. You get so even if it's on my iWatch, let me throw Shanda a bone. And I see a message and a little tiny photo that I can't see, but the message included is, Mama, I'm really worried. We really need to start feeding him. Yeah, I think that's going to pique my interest as a real live human mom, to say, oh gosh, I better look at that picture. What is it my adult-ish child is trying to tell me? So I'd go back. I wouldn't say like, you know what? I'm a very important person and I choose to look forward and not behind. So really? Okay, ma'am, sure.
To Paul to say, give him some food?
Because of what he said, he had sent a message saying something.
Okay, so you were able to see the message?
Yes, I saw and the picture, I mean, it's this big, but there was pictures, I just couldn't see what it was of.
Okay. I deviated again, and I tend to do that, sorry about that, I need to be more organized, and we'll get there. We talked about the leg irons, we talked about the plastic ties, and did you purchase those plastic ties?
I don't remember, honestly.
Okay. What about the hot sauce? Tell this jury about hot sauce and your son Timothy.
Now I'm going to need you all to strap in. And normally I don't bring him out, on non-mornings with Mo things. But I'm going to need you guys to brace yourself. And Wolfram, have a lovely lunch. And thank you for all your Modly Mod duties. I so appreciate it. So have a wonderful lunchtime. But the level of stupid that we are about to hear is going to make you want to pray. And might I suggest you pray to Final Form Jesus, because this bitch is gonna try to explain something that makes no sense even in underwater basket weaving Uno reverse logic. So I warned you guys. Let his peace come upon us as we listen to this absolute bullshit.
The key keep its grove, thou glowing shrine of thirst traps, scams, and dollar signs. We chant in tones both grim and low, for virtue fled a long time ago. Kyrie eleison, Christe descendat, Final Form Jesus return in wrath. With six-pack listening, sword in hand, he cometh swift to cleanse the land.
Now, what we are about to hear is Shanda explaining that when she was pregnant with Timothy, she actually craved spicy foods, and Timothy always liked spicy foods, so she decided to punish him using very spicy hot sauce because he loved hot sauce. Yes, it doesn't math, not even Kroger's math, not even Kohl's Cash math, not even QuadPay math. Nope, it doesn't math. But this is what they're going to sell. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how this goes for her.
Well, I'm not going to tell you my understanding, because you don't need to know that. The question is, whose idea was it to get hot sauce and to administer it to your son?
The idea was originally Paul's.
Okay.
Sure.
And what was the point of the hot sauce?
Because we had tried multiple other discipline methods, and he thought maybe that would get him to stop misbehaving.
Okay.
He suggested it to me, and I was so wrung out, I was willing to try just about anything.
All right. Were you aware that this hot sauce was purchased online?
Yes.
Do you know why it was purchased online instead of going to Meijer and picking up a bottle of hot sauce?
Well, I didn't have time to go to the store. I mean, I did the grocery delivery through the Walmart app or through the Meijer app.
Translate to sadistic truth. Shanda wanted to get one of the more severe hot sauces. So hot sauces of this Scoville and heat level were not sold in local stores. These are, think Ian Runkle would even be sweating hot sauces. Although I will admit that I am like a mild is wild for me kind of person anymore. So I used to be able to handle like medium or semi-spicy. Now I am a mild is wild type of gal. So I might have a different sort of understanding of what's spicy, but this was beyond into kind of the like challenge and one chip challenge sort of levels of heat. And I know some people enjoy that. It just doesn't, look, it's not my jam.
So, and I didn't see anything, they just had basic stuff, and and we had talked about something, and Timothy could handle this child, when I got pregnant.
I know you're going,
You're gonna-
but hold on a second.
Okay,
I
sorry.
want to make sure we understand this. This hot sauce has a particular label I've never seen it admire. Did you see the label? Did you see the hot sauce itself? What did you order it?
I believe I ordered at least one of the bottles, yes.
Okay. Why did you order this particular hot sauce? Or these particular hot sauces? What do they have in common?
Because, I think it was the same brand, the same one. Because it was hotter than what you could usually get, and because Timothy he liked spicy food.
Okay.
He loved spicy food.
All right.
Okay, now I may motherly wisdom. Now, let me see if I logic this out. Your son likes hot food, so you got something hotter for a punishment of something that he already likes. So that's like giving my son a Nerf Gatling gun because he shot out the neighbor's, window with a Nerf gun. Like, I mean, just help me understand this because I'm naturally blonde under here and it's not making sense.
How do you know you like spicy food?
That actually started before he was ever born. Before I got pregnant with Timothy, I didn't like spicy at all. I mean, nothing, no heat, nothing. And when I got pregnant with him, I started craving, my ex liked spicy foods, but I didn't. And I started craving, like I would outspice my ex. It was amazing. I still not to the extent when I was pregnant, but some of that remained. But Timothy, as early as age 2, he could eat a whole bag of the flaming hot Cheetos without a drink. I mean, just he could down. He loved spicy food. It used to scare the heck out of me.
But you
Now, one of the things that this is probably in relation to is that it was kind of discussed that Timothy he was hyposensitive for certain sensations for the sensory processing. So he had, I think, his brother will talk about him cutting his tongue, and since he had kind of decreased sensation or awareness, he didn't really realize it until someone pointed it out to him when he was a child. So with the decreased sensation, very, very spicy foods might have been the only foods that sort of kind of went through that decreased sensitivity and gave him the sensation of something being even slightly spicy. That being said, this woman, again, she was out of Timothy's life for years. So for her to talk with authority about anything beyond when her succubus ass decided to be pregnant with him, I mean, again, it just speaks from a level of motherhood that this woman has never achieved. And as a mom, it pisses me off that she's trying to wear real parents' identities as a skin suit. She has never had the self-sacrifice or the empathy or I would, put myself through heck and high water for my children. She's never had that. But then she's like, when I was impregnated with him, I used to not like spicy foods, but then I really like spicy foods. Aren't I a good mom? No, 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 you're not.
aware that these spices were hotter than what you needed
Yes,
in Meyer?
yes,
And that it was for disciplinary issues, is that
Yes.
correct? Did you ever, the testimony was that you did childcare while Paul was at school or at work? Did you ever administer any of the hot sauce yourself?
If I remember, I might have done some on bread a couple of times.
Okay.
But usually by the time I got home, that either we were cooking food,
Fountain
I had to
Michelle?
cook, or I had Paul cook something so I could feed everybody. But I don't recall, I think I did it on bread once or twice maybe, but that was it.
There's a text out there that says you suggested putting hot sauce on his penis. You remember hearing that with the jury?
I remember hearing it, yes.
Do you remember saying?
Okay, so this was on the last night of his life, and this is incredibly dark. But part of the prerequisites in Shanda's mind for these ice baths, for these punishments for Timothy, is that he was not allowed to be comfortable. He was not allowed to relax. So part of the ice bath was also uh, Paul either kind of poking him or making sure he didn't lean his head back on the lip of the tub or lean his chin on his chest. He didn't get to relax. So as Timothy is fading in and out of consciousness, as his body is no longer really able to function after, months of malnutrition, dehydration, and then, this final shock of this prolonged, I think, 10-hour ice bath, Shanda was getting very upset that Paul could not rouse Timothy to make sure he wasn't slumping over. So after the pizza roll, the frozen pizza roll kind of, put under his face to try to get him to respond, after that didn't work, Shanda came up with the idea to put some of this very, very hot sauce on Timothy's private area to see if he would move then. Now, this is pure speculation. We don't have any evidence. I would like to put that way out there. But I absolutely believe that Shanda and Paul did this. I don't think that they had any limiting factors at that point. I think it was kind of a one-upsman, like, what can we do more? So I don't think that I don't think either of them balked at this. I don't think there was a line where either of them would have been like, that's a little too far. So they both have said that they didn't do it, but I firmly believe they did. I don't think there's any level of depravity that Shanda would not fall to. But that's just my speculation. And it's not been, facts laid out in court or anything like that. I don't have any inside knowledge, but given all of the things she had already done, I don't think that there were any limiting factors at that point that would have said, no, we shouldn't do this. But both her and Paul claim that they decided that that was just a step too far and they didn't do it. I gotta say, bullshit.
Saying those things?
I do not know.
And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I wish I didn't have this bone deep, feeling that this is absolutely true. I wish I could say, I believe Shanda and Paul. If only that Timothy could have been spared that one, final, humiliation and discomfort. And it hurts me that I can't say that with all honesty. I believe they did it.
Oh, yeah, we talked about the ice baths. Some called cold baths and sometimes they were called ice baths. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The source of the ice, according to the testimony I heard, was your home refrigerator.
No, it was actually a countertop ice maker. The refrigerator did not have an ice maker in it.
Okay, and you didn't go out and buy the 50-pound bags of ice for the home?
No, I did not.
How much ice are we talking about that tabletop ice maker can?
It actually made about a cup and a half of ice. I had to measure it to use it I made some frappes at times.
Okay.
The basket was maybe this wide, and then underneath was the water, where the water was kept, because that's how it.
Okay, so what we're going to get essentially is that Shanda likes frappuccinos, but being a, struggling single mom, she makes them at home, which, what the F ever. That being said, what Shanda and her lawyer fail to understand is that, yes, it might only be a cup and a half of water, but Timothy has no, foundational, either, visceral fat or adipose tissue to keep him warm. So getting Oh, cool. Awesome, awesome. Hi, Heidel. Um, he basically didn't have the ability to maintain his body temperature without the ice. So adding the ice was just insult to injury. Him being in that cold water is going to affect him more drastically than if you threw, my youngest, most feral, who would still hate the cold water. He's a skinny little, teeny tiny guy. So he wouldn't last as much as my Bobby Hill son, who has a little bit of insulation. You can see this in the pool. My Bobby Hill son will be, just playing, splashing, having fun. Youngest, most feral is usually about freezing an hour in. So it doesn't take into account. They can continue to harp on the volume or actual weight of the ice, but Timothy was not in a situation where this was nominal. This was in fact something that could have tipped him over because he was so medically delicate. And that's what she and Paul and her lawyer failed to realize, or willfully failed to realize, when they're talking about this. Timothy wasn't a normal kid who had enough fat that he could shiver and maybe stay in there for a while and not have any adverse reactions. He was at the end of his life. It's just appalling what she did to this child.
Made the ice.
Okay.
And then it took about 2 hours to remake more ice.
Okay. All right. Okay. You admit getting frustrated with your child care efforts with Timothy, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Um,
Frustrated, discouraged.
Did you ever intend to hurt him?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You raised.
Acting isn't your first suit. No. What does a no face look like? No, absolutely not. Maybe you should have practiced your, like, no, no, not me. How dare you? Shanda, you had a bunch of time, while you were in prison to practice your shock horror face. I mean, Jen McCabe could have probably helped you, but that sucked. That was worse than like High School Musical in my rural Podunk area. Like, that's bad.
Raised other children, correct?
Yes, I did.
And uh, while Timmy was malnourished, to your knowledge, have any of your other children ever been reported as malnourished?
No, not at all.
As I looked at Paul, he seemed like a thin guy to me.
He is. We're all pretty small. Well,
Okay.
my oldest is a little bit thicker.
Okay. My question is this: was Timothy's, when he was healthy, was his build like his brothers, or was he built like his older brother, who was a little heavier?
He went back and forth. There was a situation where he actually got on the bathroom scale it was after Mother's Day of 2022. I can tell you why I know it's after Mother's Day if you want me to.
No, that's not
Okay.
necessary. Unless
But
you ask.
I was training a new service dog, as has been discussed. It's a Great Dane puppy. He was 7 months old at the time, and he was too big to sit on the bathroom scale to get his weight, and I wanted to see what he weighed. And Timothy, what we would do is somebody would stand on the scale, get your weight, and then you pick up the dog. And Timothy wanted to help out that day. So I thought the dog would be too big for him at that point. He was already really big at 7 months old. But I said, okay, let's try it. And so it was, like I said, sometime after Mother's Day. It wasn't very long after Mother's Day, but at the time he was 104, Timothy was.
Okay.
He could not pick up the dog because the dog was 102 at the time.
Okay. Part of this process of providing childcare, somebody had to be the eyes in the house when you weren't there, is that correct?
Yes,
And you selected Paul for that purpose.
I didn't have a choice. That was my only option.
How much did you rely upon what Paul was telling you?
I totally relied on him.
Do you remember during the reading of the transcripts, the text, that you asked Paul? Matter of fact, let me.
Good
Yeah.
Lord.
Are you worried about?
The mosey is strong with this lawyer. I want to speed him up because he talks so doggone slow, but she speaks normal speed, so she sounds like a chipmunk, which might make her more bearable and or more annoying, so I don't want to really open that Pandora's box. But I swear to goodness, could you just come up with a succinct and not meandering question? Could we do that?
About him at all, or is it all a bunch of BS like it has been for days? Do you remember that? Do you remember that text?
Vaguely, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you remember his response?
I remember he said he wasn't worried about it.
Did you rely on that?
Yes, absolutely. He was the one, I was at home so few hours when the kids were awake, unfortunately.
And then you had to sleep, try to sleep yourself.
I tried, yes, sir.
And
They
you're-
slept better than I did.
let's face it, your house is
Again, I don't give a flying flapjack how you slept. And look, Shanda, I think we're going to have a cripple off because I would just like to explain. So, part of the reason I really wanted to bring this trial to light is Timothy's inability to deal with the cold water is something I experience on a nearly daily basis. Anytime I try to shower with my nerve issues in my leg, and I, as an adult grown woman in possession of most of the faculties that a functional human adult has, it still takes my breath away. It's still, I'll sometimes go and kind of cover my mouth because I don't want to, scream out and startle any of my kids when cold water hits my leg. And I can't imagine dealing with that when you can't get warm and with the the place where you're supposed to be safe. So, Shanda, let's just I'ma drop it like it's hot. Madam, about 4 years ago, I broke my ankle and it set off a very rare nerve condition. And basically, my entire left leg from knee down feels like it's got, well, sort of the final level frostbite. In fact, right now, my foot, it's a pretty cool trick. Like the only one that my ab can do, not give me, or my body can do, not give me abs, which is upsetting. But if you do one of those temperature guns on my feet, because of the nerve issue affecting circulation and a bunch of different things, my foot can actually be about 5 to 10 degrees lower on my left leg than my right leg. So I essentially walk around all the time feeling like I have frostbite from the knee down. And from the knee up on my left leg up to my hip, I feel like I'm getting struck with lightning every once in a while and it burns a lot. So more like a sunburn. And yes, my life has changed as a mom, but you know what hasn't changed? The fact that I am a mom. So even on bad days, I try to interact with what I can with my children. And I put my hand over my mouth. There have been nights that have been so bad, and I'm not saying this for sympathy, but I'm trying to get where Shanda is so flippin' flapjack wrong and why it bothers me more than I think it would have if I've never gotten hurt. I deal with this every day, and I have learned the hard way that I can't take out, having a bad pain day or struggling with something on my loved ones. So I made it very clear, like after, pulling my head out of my behind after the first 6 months, that I needed to be very, very, you know, very, very sure that whatever I was going through with my own stuff didn't affect them as much as I could make it. So my kids don't know how much I'm affected most of the time because I try not to, let it affect the entire family or color a lot of things. They notice that I don't go on outings or certain outings aren't fun for them or wouldn't be fun for me. And that I don't, do all the cleaning anymore. But that doesn't mean I can't sit with them and I can't do other things as a mom. Again, This is so incredibly upsetting because that was the one big thing I have fought for through this entire change in my life, was to continue to still do a good job, to be the best mom I can be. And the fact that this woman uses because everyone has struggles. Mine is my nerve stuff. You might have other things. But the fact that she uses it as an excuse to be cruel and unkind to the biggest blessings that she was ever going to get in her life. Because I don't give a rat's ass if you're smart, Shanda. I think, so was, Joseph Mengele. He was smart. Doesn't mean he was a force for good. Doesn't mean he will be remembered as anything but a monster. And I'm guessing you're going to be in the same, group as him. You'll be remembered as a monster, a smart one, but a really dumb criminal one. And that's fine. But the fact that you use, your medical things, and I know so many moms who deal with chronic issues, chronic pain, and we don't let it get in our way. We still find a way to parent our kids and be as active. So I get really fed up with her woe is me thing and her, I was just so stressed out. Because Timothy wasn't stressed out because he couldn't move. He was in stress positions, getting cold baths, and, not being allowed to drink or eat. I really don't give a rat's rah-rah about your pain and suffering, madam.
A mess. It's a wreck.
Yes, sir.
Why was that?
I'm not a great person at keeping things clean, and having 3 boys, that contributed. I tried to get their help cleaning up as much as I could, but I just didn't have time or the energy.
Poor
with
martyr
the lack of sleep and
Shanda.
everything else going on. I barely functioned.
Okay. And that message strike that, leave that. Did you depend, I asked you, did you depend on what Paul was telling you?
Yes, sir.
In your opinion, did Paul ever, for lack of a better term, sound the alarm?
Not that I was aware of, no, sir.
Okay. That one message, was that it?
That was it. That's the only thing I got from Paul that ever had any concern.
But you didn't even look at it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
Because it was
okay, let's
little.
talk about some other stuff here. Once you discovered that Timothy had passed, and once the police get there, do you tell them the truth?
I was so freaked out. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I want you to go back here because we are going to see the exact moment when this bitch decides she better start crying. And because she is so devoid of a human soul, she's like, how does one cry? So watch this because you can pinpoint the exact moment she's like, oh, I'm supposed to cry. So yeah, it starts right about back here.
That Timothy had passed.
This is where she's like, I need to start
and once the
crying.
police-
Think of something sad, like, the fact that no one's buying this bullshit. I mean, the fact that I was really victimized in this. Won't someone think of Shanda? Wow. Again, acting not her strong suit.
Get there. Do you tell them the truth?
I was so freaked out. I'm sorry. Honestly, I've got one.
Oh, no, bitch, you don't need a tissue if there's not anything falling out of your eye sockets. But I'm glad you have a prop, because in improv, having a prop helps sometimes.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome. Why didn't you tell them the truth? Why were you so freaked?
I don't remember what my line of thinking was at the time. I was so I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't.
Were you tired at that point?
I was exhausted.
I wish we'd seen a tear, but we don't. And notice how, oh, we're fine. Now it's justify, justify, justify. But did you see me? I almost teared. Oh, this woman.
The night before he passed, I had less than an hour of sleep.
Were you frightened at that point?
Absolutely. I just lost my son.
You need a moment?
I'm okay.
Well, again, I'm still waiting for that first solitary tear to fall out your craggy edifice of a face, but I guess we're still waiting. Maybe this will squeeze something.
Um, Were you expecting, was this outcome expected by you?
Absolutely not. No.
So would it be safe to say you were surprised?
I was shocked.
Were you in disbelief initially?
Yes, absolutely.
We've got there's an indication that it took you a while to call the police. In fact, you told Paul not to, according to Paul's testimony. Why did it take you so long? He said 18 minutes out. Why did it take you so long to call the police?
I have no idea, honestly. I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. It was surreal. Like you don't even know what's going on. Time slowed down.
Time slowed down so I could take down some of the, zip ties, make sure that I clothed the boy that I had starved to death in his brother's clothing to make it look like he had been on a hunger strike, come up with this whole cockamamie fakakta hunger strike thing. Yeah, this is her first drama class.
And I didn't know what was going on.
When was the first time you found out it took 18 minutes to call the police?
Was it yesterday or the day before? Yeah, it was within the last few days.
Okay.
That's the first time.
Do you remember who was testifying when you found out? It doesn't matter.
I think we discussed it at a meeting on Monday. Was it Monday?
Okay.
I think
It
so.
doesn't matter.
And I heard 14 minutes initially, and then the first time I heard 18 minutes was when Paul said it yesterday.
Do you remember, how clear is your memory of your time and from the time you found Timothy and he had passed, and to the time you finished talking to the police that day?
It's spotty.
Okay. The first officer said that you were distraught. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
He said that you were crying. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually let a tear loose?
Do you remember telling the police that you...
Shanda, I know you were looking up at the Heavenly Father in order to try to save you, but God would like to be left out of your personal life right now, because, yeah, you're kind of fighting for the other side.
that you pulled Timothy from his bunk bed when you found him in distress?
I remember saying something like that, yes, sir.
Was that true?
No, sir.
Do you remember providing CPR for Timothy?
Yes, I do.
When did you stop that?
When the pro-med people walked down into the basement. I had asked them to take over, and they didn't take over right away, but they said I had to leave the area.
Okay. Let's do the hard stuff here. Jury's seen pictures of Timothy. We've all seen pictures of Timothy at the time of his death. How could you not know he was that ill? How could you
Ew.
not know?
Honestly, I was barely functioning. I missed a lot. I hate it because, I feel like a complete failure, but there was things that I just didn't see. There was a lot that I didn't see, unfortunately.
In those texts, you instruct Paul to make sure he's getting enough calories, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
You had a restricted diet, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you instructed Paul to make sure he's getting calories.
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you rely?
You told him to feed him rice and bread. You were basically having your son subsist on simple carbohydrates. Your one nod to nutritional density was to cook the rice in chicken broth. Now, I can tell you that that would give him short bursts of energy, but would in no way help him to build any muscle mass or regain any of the body fat. You kept him on a basic subsistence diet. You in no way made sure that he was eating correctly.
On that?
Absolutely.
Paul says he called the police ultimately. Who called the police?
I called 911. It was on my phone. I'm
Sure,
you can
Mom
give
of
the
the
call
Year.
and find out where it's from.
Did you intend to hurt Timothy?
No, never.
Did you know he was being hurt?
No, I didn't, unfortunately.
Here's the problem. And again, this is where Shanda is always going to run into a problem. She is able to function in a very precise, very highly, you need highly, organized skills and attention to detail and all of the things in order to work as a clerk in, for a county, judge. So she had to be very meticulous in her job. So you can't have someone who's basically disassociated being meticulous and absolutely spot on, doing well in her professional career from all outside appearances. If you just look at her youngest child being a functional mother and be able to, take her youngest child to his little league games and get him some chicken nuggets and things like that. If you are so completely dysfunctional in your disassociation that you can't see that your son has his ribs, every single one of his ribs sticking out, especially when he was mostly nude on the cameras that you continuously monitored at your work. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fly. And if she had an ounce of perception, she would realize this.
The tactics that you use to, first of all, the tactics that you use to discipline Timothy, did they seem extreme or outrageous to you at the time?
No.
Timothy remained in, you'll admit the bath was not warm on the day he died. It was a cold bath.
Correct, the day
Okay.
before.
It wasn't an ice bath though, correct?
I
As far as
wasn't,
you know.
from the text, it looks like he did, but that wasn't what was said to do.
Okay,
Paul chose to do the ice on his own, if you look at the text.
okay. So,
Right.
there's testimony that you remained.
Again, we have met Paul, and you're telling me that you had no worries? I mean, we have beyond the point understand that you could give a rat's rah-rah what Timothy was doing other than, being punished by you. But you have interacted with Paul, and you were okay with him watching your youngest son. There is something deeply troubling about Paul on just a social level. He is very off-putting, and very socially awkward, which is off-putting. And that's the person you decided, well, I trusted his judgment. Again, it doesn't make sense. You are a highly, intelligent, legal, just got your law license, just got your bar license, and you left someone so incredibly dysfunctional with your children and were so out of it that you could perform a highly skilled job but couldn't maintain anything in your home. Okay.
In that tub for hours. Were you aware of that?
No, I didn't realize he was in the tub, no.
When you came home, you didn't realize he was in the tub?
I did, when I got home, I actually ran him a warm bath when I got home,
Oh, sure you did.
in the tub downstairs.
Okay, so once you found him in the tub, what did you, explain the dream what you're talking about.
Well, I had to get Paul to work, and then I came home, and my understanding, at least, was that when Paul had splashed water, he had splashed it on his face only. That's what I understood. So I didn't realize he was still there. And so when I got home, I was like, wait a second, what the? So I decided to go ahead and run a warm bath just to.
There's a bunch of stuff in there talk about.
Spoiler alert. State will bring out that there is no evidence that she ran him a hot bath, and she'll say, no, I actually didn't. But she thought that this was going to be, something nice, that she was like, I was nice.
Make sure he doesn't sleep. Make sure he doesn't sleep. What's that about?
there was a couple of situations where Timothy actually intentionally kept everybody in the house awake. He would intentionally set off the motion sensors. He would make noise. With the house being bi-level, you could hear a lot from the downstairs.
They put bike alarms that go off if you move on his hands and feet while he was supposed to be sleeping. If he moved at all, they would go off, but then it's his fault for keeping them awake. Do you see how twisted these punishments are? He could not win. It was like Saul, basically.
But he intentionally kept everybody awake.
Okay,
And so that was, okay, if you're gonna keep us awake, then you have to stay awake.
okay. So, here's my question. If he slept all day, what would he do all night?
Oh, he'd be up all night. You had to get him up no later than about 10 in the morning, or he was up all night long.
Okay. There's a door that has a dent in it that we saw an exhibit of, okay? And you heard Paul testify that he did that.
Yes.
What is your recollection of that incident?
What I remember is I remember hearing Paul yell from his room, because his room was directly below the master bedroom. And then I pulled up I wasn't asleep, so I pulled up the main camera in the basement area, and I see Paul come out and kick that door. And I went to hit the button. He was screaming at Timothy while it happened. And I hit the two-way talk button on the camera and said, "Hey, what the heck? Go back to bed." And I actually had to physically go downstairs and get him away from the door and send him to bed.
Was the
Okay, so you are functional enough to remember this entire sequence where Paul demonstrated point blank period that he should not be in charge of either of your children. And you remember this in order to throw Paul under the bus. But if you remember this and you realized he was unfit and dangerous or unable to cope with watching your children, and you still left him in charge of your children, that's neglectful. You have knowledge that he is in no way equipped to deal with Timothy without violence, and you still let Timothy stay there. That's still, CA, madam.
in the text on occasion, Paul would have say things that suggest aggression towards Timothy on occasion. Did you know any other circumstances other than what's in those situations in the text?
Oh, absolutely. He never displayed that towards my youngest. He never displayed that towards my husband when he was still at home, or myself. He would get aggressive when he was playing games. He would get really angry. He had some serious anger issues. And then when Timothy moved up, and Timothy did push his buttons some, but he never reacted well. I mean, he just overreacted to Timothy every time.
So you were able to get all of these disparate information points about how he reacted, and yet you still had him watch Timothy. And you don't understand how absolutely redonkulous that sounds to most people?
He hardly ever reacted rationally to Timothy.
Okay. And so, other than what he was texting you, and other than what you could see when you weren't working at your job, you don't have firsthand information as to what's going on between Paul and Timothy. Is that correct?
No, I asked my little guy occasionally, but Timothy never told me anything that was going on.
Okay.
So I asked just because if I had texted Paul and he seemed upset, then I would get home and, hey, is everything okay? And my little guy, honestly, I don't remember him ever saying that there was an issue. He said, yeah, Paul got mad, but that was it. He never said anything happened.
Okay. One moment, please. What was your intent when you would administer punishments to Timothy?
To get him to behave.
Was it ever your intent to harm him?
No, absolutely not. No, the locks on the fridge and freezer, they're actually, he scared the heck out of me after my husband's stroke. And that's what brought those two on.
Okay.
I can tell you what happened.
What was the incident, and then what was the incident that caused you to put locks on the fridge?
I had just purchased a 2-pound bag of frozen chicken nuggets and put it in the freezer. And overnight, I guess he got around the motion sensors. But the next day, it was a weekend, and the next day I went to, little man asked for some chicken nuggets. And I went to get them, and the bag was empty in the freezer. And I was like, what? I mean, we hadn't touched it. And so I started asking, and at first Timothy lied to me. He's
Notice how she says we, and she really doesn't include Timothy in that we. But also, Shanda, you absolute reject. Maybe if you would read the labels, you would realize that chicken nuggets are already pre-baked. Now, it's not healthy to eat them, but it's not like eating a raw chicken breast with some panko breading over it. They are already they're like flash fried, so they are cooked to the point of not being raw. Yeah, she is trying to lead her lawyer. Slidey Pie, I think that's why Paul didn't really look at his mother and now is calling her Shanda. I think he realized, to whatever capacity he's able to realize, that she intended him to be the fall guy. Because that's essentially, she made it very clear that she was only, suggesting things, and a lot of the text aren't her doing things, but instructing him to do things. So maybe she thought by the transitive property of just cruelty, she would be, unintentionally innocent futuristically like Sarah.
that he didn't touch it. And then I went and checked with little man and with Paul, and nobody had touched so I went back because I had issues with both Paul and Timothy lying to me a lot. So I went back to Timothy. I said, nobody else has touched this. He said, I ate them. I said, okay, did you cook them? He said, no, he ate the whole 2-pound bag frozen, uncooked chicken.
All right.
No, you absolute mental midget. Let me explain something to you because I have children and I have had one eat a frozen chicken nugget. They're already cooked. They're already cooked. And there is a part of the brain. So if you are past a point of starvation, if you are starving, are hungry, the hippocampus in the brain, the thing that normally kind of centers around disgust or, why you would turn your nose at something that doesn't smell right, that part really loosens its control on, your kind of, it's control on the brain. So things that you wouldn't eat, things like raw hamburger or, raw bacon or 2 pounds of frozen chicken nuggets, your kind of disgust is turned off. So him eating this is a sign of how malnourished he was, because he wasn't eating it for the taste. He was eating it simply because his body was like, I am not going to survive if you don't eat. So whatever we find, and he didn't have the time. Shanda would have caught him, so he knew that he had to eat quickly. So, him eating frozen food wasn't him trying to scare her. It was him saying, Mom, I'm so hungry. You have made me so starved that I am willing to eat frozen food so I don't have to deal with the punishment of eating it. But I'm also, I need to survive.
Were you concerned about his health and getting into and eating frozen food?
Yes.
Not
and,
enough to take
he
him to the
ate,
doctor.
There was a time where he ate uncooked bacon out of the fridge before the chicken nugget incident. He ate a whole pound of uncooked ground beef at one point. This was all after the stroke when there was less people to keep an eye on.
Did it occur to you he's doing those things because he's hungry? He's starving?
No, there was plenty of food. There was no issues. He never told me he was hungry at the time when these incidents happened.
Okay.
He would not have asked for food. A lot of this control seems to center around food. And if you are a severely scared, hungry, terrified child, you are not going to go to your incredibly cruel, sadistic, and quite frankly, confusing captor and say, please, sir, can I have some more? No, you're not. You're going to try to sneak it. And her saying casually that there was food around, there was food for herself, for Paul, and for her minor son. It was not for Timothy, and Timothy was well aware that food wasn't for him. It had been drummed into him. So the fact that she and her lawyer casually mentioned that there's food about, you don't have to lock things up if you've locked up someone's brain. If you have made someone so terrified of you that they no longer even try to open something that is, not always locked, then again, the logic that these two use are just ridiculous.
So, fast forward. You offer him 2 pizza rolls if he does a certain thing. And you say, I don't care if they're frozen when you give them to him. If you're concerned about him eating frozen food, why would you offer him 2 frozen pizza rolls?
Because the chicken was uncooked and it's dangerous. I had a panic attack.
Okay, wait. So frozen pizza rolls, okay, because apparently they're pre-cooked, which they are not. Frozen chicken nuggets, dangerous because they're raw chicken, which they are not. Shanda, you are 2 for 2 at wrong and wrong.
When he did the chicken, it was terrifying. I broke down completely.
And JK Debug, you are so right. Long and short. So, Mo, you should hear the stories my coworker tells about his niece who grew up in a Romanian orphanage until she was 6. The stories of what she'd eat were heartbreaking. Long and short, they had to keep snacks and food all over the home in the open, and it took a year for her to learn that food was now plentiful. Yeah. Food security is probably something that every room in the house had apples, peanuts, bananas, jelly beans. Yeah, because a lot of times kids in foster care or kids that have been in a situation like this will, in future, either foster care or even permanent placements, hoard food, hide food, be very, very worried and preoccupied with food because they remember times where there was none there. So, I mean, there are, people that I know who constantly have a full pantry because they remember times when they were a kid, even though now they're, single or only 2 people in the house, they remember a time when there wasn't any food in the pantry. Yeah, so, and because of that, because they never know where food is going to come, they can turn to some things that can be really dangerous for them to eat. And especially if they weren't in a place where it was safe to eat, food that you would normally consider food. But I'm glad that she is okay and that they dealt with it in a healthy and responsible way and really responded to her needs, because it can be kind of a mind trip to have to deal with a child who's having to deal with all of these things. So I'm glad that they took the time to really make sure she felt safe and secure.
The nuggets were uncooked chicken.
Yes, it's uncooked chicken.
No, it's
that
not,
could have
you
killed him.
idiot.
It freaked me out.
The absolute dipshittery irony, I don't even have a word crap spackly enough to have you eloquently and with your effing pug face forward like a daggone ridiculous, caricature of a pug, say, the chicken nuggets could have killed him. I was terrified. From the woman who took his life. I mean, the audacity that must have been on clearance when this chick was getting made. I mean, she must have thought that it was like alacrity or elasticity, and she just got 3 or 4 helpings of audacity, because are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So you had a panic attack because the chicken nuggets were going to take his life, and you couldn't even squeeze out one full daggone tear to roll down your freaking, ridiculous cheek when you talked about your son dying on the stand. Oh, good Lord.
But the pizza rolls were at least cooked.
Yes, that
Even
was
if they
just,
were
you
frozen.
reheated them.
Okay. He was, and I'll give it one more, he was rail thin. How did you not notice?
I wish I hadn't answered that. Part of it, he actually, from the time of the stroke, because my husband's stroke was January 3rd of 2022, so most of this was cold weather. Part of it was he wore big clothes, he wore hoodies. the clothes that were sent to him from his dad and stepmom, most of the pants didn't fit him well to begin with. And I had gotten him a couple of pairs of jeans, but I mean, I couldn't afford a lot. And he also, once the stroke happened, he got really reclusive. He just, I mean, he didn't want, and I had to force him, for a while when he was doing his homeschooling, he would do it on his tablet. And then I found out I tried to lock the tablet down, but he was doing other stuff on his tablet when he was supposed to be doing schoolwork. So I started the curriculum that he was on, you could print the assignments and the questions. So I started printing that, and literally he'd be like, just stick it on the stairs, and he'd give me the other assignments, I would grade them and stick.
The audacity again she has. She was systematically controlling and torturing this child. And then she's like, you know, he didn't want to hang out with me. Like, he wouldn't even give me a hug or anything. I mean, he was kind of being like, I guess, a teenager or something. No, you were the very devil, the monster under the bed. That was you. Shanda, the boogeyman in his life, wore your face and was you. So again, she continues to be mad at Timothy for not, worshiping the quicksand that I wish she walked upon. And look at that face. Like, he just didn't even want to see me. Ma'am, you look like a constipated pug. Butterface Land O'Lake Butters girl. I mean, I don't know what you want from me. I don't want a hug from you either.
And put him into the program. But he didn't want anything to do with me, hardly at all.
Yeah, but when you put your arms
Can't
around
imagine.
your
He
son,
didn't want hugged. He was 15. He didn't want me.
and he was autistic, correct?
He was high functioning.
Okay,
But most of the autism came with like interactions with other people. He struggled there.
okay. So it wasn't, was it just you he didn't want touching, or was there anybody, he didn't want anybody else?
He didn't want Gabriel, he didn't want little man hugging him either.
Okay. What about Paul? Do you ever see
They
him?
never offered to hug each other.
Thank you.
No.
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Mo has asked that we go out to lunch, and since he is working his behind off to sand the drywall, I do anticipate that we should get through the rest of the trial tomorrow. I am going to try to put in a bit of a longer day since I will be gone Thursday. I will have mornings with Mo. It'll either be live or recorded on Thursday, but I will be taking oldest, most feral off to college to start her, her first steps into adulthood. And I'm trying not to be that cliche mom that, fails to function as her children move into the next season of their life. But there may be some Kleenex full of actual tears, Shanda, that day. But hopefully we will be off of Shanda's case by this weekend. I do want to look at Paul's interview and some of Shanda's interview and then some phone calls, but we might just stick those on the weekends and go to another trial. So we will have a Shanda, Shanda roast on Sunday or Saturday. I'm just not sure what we'll be covering yet, depending on how far we get tomorrow. But thank you, as always, for joining me on the Petty Express. I appreciate it, where we covered trials with wit, snark, and heart, and all the respect for the victims, but all of the roasting for the perpetrators. And I am sending you off to, it looks like, Flux. Flux is doing zombie stuff, so that looks fun. Have a good time. Tell her I sent you over there. And as always, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire, because monsters like this chick need roasting. And as it's my superpower to have a sassy mouth and the ability to sit still for a long period of time and roast people, with great powers come great responsibilities. So over to the House of Flux, you guys. Give her a big old hello and some support. And I will see you guys, if not maybe tonight, if we have a random stream, then tomorrow morning I will be here bright and early and back again. Bye, you guys.